And I tell young kids and students, take as many classes as you can. If you have extra time, you're never going to get this chance again. Hey everyone, my name is Colin Rube. I'm a structural engineer with Rass and Johnson out in Chicago. And I'd like to welcome you to this episode of Engineering Greatness, an original podcast from the American Concrete Institute. And I'm glad to be here with my co-host and friend, Patrick Barnhouse.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for the intro, Colin. Yes, my name is Patrick Barnhouse, and I am the manager of the Concrete Materials Laboratories at American Engineering Testing in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Thanks, Patrick. So we've known each other since, 2016 or so. I think we both met each other at the Milwaukee convention, ACI, right. Both within driving distance of our respective hometowns these days. So we can convince our employers that we should go at a really early age. But having known you that long, I feel like we really haven't talked too much about our respective backgrounds and how we got to where we are now.
Yeah,
7 years later, something like that.
Yeah, I know, 6.5 years, and we've been just talking about whatever the events of the day are for us.
Right. Yeah. So why don't we talk a little bit about your career journey? I feel like, knowing you for these years, I feel like you're the beginning of your career and your background. It's kind of like that Johnny Cash song, "I've Been Everywhere."
Yeah, well, I suppose to a certain degree. So, yeah, because I did my undergraduate down at Marquette University. That's over in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And so I did my undergraduate there, and I did a co-op experience. So I was able to graduate with a year of work experience. So it just took 5 years instead of 4 years. And then I went out west to Colorado and did grad work out there. I started at the Colorado School of Mines in Golden, Colorado, but then ended up finishing out and getting my degree from the University of Colorado in Boulder. But then after I bounced around for a couple of places for schooling, I bounced back to the Midwest and kind of hit in between Wisconsin and Colorado and ended up in Minnesota at AET, American Engineering Testing. And I always just was kind of wanting to get something in the materials side of civil engineering. And so an opportunity to be involved with a testing and engineering consultancy was kind of a good fit for me.
Yeah. Well, was there something, in your, early years that really, I guess, directed you towards materials specifically? I know in my experience, it's not like something that, is a thing in high school or anything like that. So.
Yeah, well, originally I actually wanted to go into geotechnical engineering. In my undergrad, that was what really sparked my interest. I thought it was interesting to work with whatever materials you were given, like whatever in situ soils, that's just what you've got to deal with on a project. And that was interesting to me. And then whenever I got into grad school, I ended up having my interest more shifted towards the concrete, and just I had some personal things come up when it came to actually getting through the geotechnical curriculum. And then when I was looking at concrete as a possible shift, I realized, well, there's a lot of similarities to going with the geotechnical route, because I was looking at all these different constituent materials, but it was almost like taking geotechnical engineering, but I got to actually engineer my material rather than just deal with what I was given on a specific project.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so
They call geotechnical engineering what the dark science or
yeah,
dark magic.
yeah. And so it just was like, well, instead of just needing to make the most of it, I could actually take some of those similar principles, or I still take natural materials and coarse and fine aggregates of rock and sand, but I can manipulate them and grade them and blend them as needed into the concrete material. So, I mean, I've always been very much a materials minded person, but I know, Colin, you've been more on the structural side, the analysis side. Is that kind of where you started when you were an undergrad, or did you kind of have a pivot like me?
Oh yeah, yeah. I definitely pivoted like you. I mean, not exactly the same, but going, back to high school, I was like the typical wannabe engineer, right? Played with Legos, in my early days. Loved to, go to the city. It was nice being, in suburban Chicago and being able to go out to the city and see the fantastic skyline all the time throughout my younger years. And then obviously just getting into math and science and knowing that was kind of my niche, and just experiencing that kind of thing. And then my dad, he was kind of passionate about architecture. So that was a little, kind of thing I got from him. And he actually works in the trades. And so I at an early age, I got that experience of construction and what that all kind of had to, in that feeling and that experience. But I think as I got further along in high school, and you may think about this too, from past years, but most of all was roller coasters. And a lot of engineers will say, "Oh yeah, I want to design and build roller coasters. That's my dream." And yeah, that I was one of those guys.
Yeah. You fit the stereotype.
Yeah, absolutely. Played the Roller Coaster Tycoon video game, and it was like, yeah, this is something that I can do. I'm going to be a Imagineer at Disney World, or I'm going to design, the tallest roller coasters for Cedar Point or whatever. And so my background going into college was, okay, I want to be an engineer. I want to design roller coasters, right? I don't know what kind of engineer I need to be to do that. And
I still don't know.
I still don't know. You need to be there's undefined engineer, but going into that is like, okay, maybe mechanical is the way to go. And so that's kind of what I was looking at. I was looking at schools for mechanical, and ended up at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign as an undeclared engineer. And fortunately for me, there was a class that they offered in my freshman year that kind of went through all the engineering disciplines for those undecided engineers to try to figure out where you belong. And, the first day was like environmental, I should I even go? And then like the second day was mechanical, and I'm like, all right, here we go. And after about 5 minutes, I'm like, no, this isn't for me. No way.
Was it like the thermodynamics, or what aspect of it just didn't?
Yeah, I'm like, what are heat pumps? Heat pumps.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, thermodynamics. And I decided that I don't like things that move. I don't like things that move, Patrick. It's just,
no. You're in the right field then.
Yeah, yes. So civil came, and it's like, oh, statics. We like, sum of forces equals 0. Yes, that's where I belong. So that's really what got me into civil engineering, specifically structural engineering, and that pursuit. So.
Yeah. Well, interesting. You talked about even going back to high school, and that's really cool to hear, like where those foundations came from for you. And I talked about by the time I got to college, I was set on engineering, but I'd had that pivot of geotech to
Right.
concrete materials. But back in high school, I actually originally thought I was going to become an airline pilot.
There you
I
go.
was actually really into aviation, and I actually had toured a school for the sake of going to their flight program.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I got to go out to the airfield and like see the different planes. And they were talking about how like after your first semester or the first year, you'd have your private pilot's license, and so you could like rent out their planes if you wanted to. And I was super captivated. And I still like aviation and airplanes and such. But then I got to talk to other people in the industry, and it was just like the work life balance was going to be very off kilter, like gone for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. And it's like
Yeah.
missing every holiday was like,
Yeah.
I don't know about that. And then
Yeah.
I had people tell me like, well, you're good at, math and science. Do you want to do engineering? And I was like, oh, I guess I should think about that. But
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
but so and that was what ended up pointing me to uh, back to engineering. But yeah, originally I was gonna be flying airplanes.
yeah, I can't say the same for that, but I guess if I could, I'd just ride roller coasters for a job. That'd be fun.
Well, that would be a good one. That would be a good one too.
um, so I guess so. You got into engineering. You got into concrete. So is that why you got into ACI then? That just naturally led you to this organization? Were you involved in organizations during school that like ACI student chapters or other student
Yeah.
chapters that kind of led you in that direction?
Yeah, so I actually wasn't really involved with ACI at a college level. My involvement today really opens my eyes to how much there is available for students. An undergraduate, I did the concrete canoe, but that's with
Mm-hmm.
ASCE instead of ACI.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then, whenever I started here at AET, I was working in the concrete labs, and as an aspiring engineer and growing my career, my supervisor really encouraged me to get involved with ACI. And so it was a really big blessing to be able to have such a support from my manager from the get go.
Yeah.
Being close by at Milwaukee for my first ACI convention, because I started with my company in the fall of 2015. So spring of 2016 for the Milwaukee convention was my first opportunity to be at AET when ACI was happening. And so that was a good chance for me to really see what the wider world of concrete really was. I mean, it just opened my eyes to like the diversity of the discipline, because I feel like when you started out, like, what branch of engineering do you want? Okay, well, I want to do civil. And it's like, well, I want to do civil. So do you want to do transportation, materials, structural, environmental? So, and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to go into materials. Like, okay, well,
Right.
are you going to use steel? Or are you going to do concrete? Like, okay, well, I'm going to do concrete. And it's like,
Masonry,
okay,
wood.
yeah. And it's like, and then now when you're in concrete, it's like, well, do you want to worry about mix design? Do you want to do structural analysis? Are you doing paving? Or, what's your applications? And it's like, are you doing research? Are you doing fiber reinforcement? Are you doing traditional reinforcement? Is just like, we can really go down the rabbit hole, and ACI
Right.
just let me see like all the different varieties and disciplines and subdisciplines within the field that we can get involved and contribute
Right.
to.
Right. You really find your place in the
Yeah,
society.
really find a niche within the industry. Um, I mean, for you, Colin, did you get to start out at ACI right away in your career, or did it take a while?
So no, it took me a while. I was a late bloomer in terms of, actually getting into the civil engineering courses and figuring out my way. But, I would say around junior year is when it started really ramping up with the technical societies and getting involved from a technical standpoint. And my involvement, similar to you, I got involved through a peer in Concrete Canoe. And I mean, that organization really changed my whole life. I still have friends to this day that, are going to be lifelong friends, and just lifelong relationships that really opened the door to in my future career and all the different pathways that I could take. And it was just a great organization. It really met my needs. Like, I wanted to get involved in the technical aspect, but being an Eagle Scout and being that outdoorsy guy and going to Boundary Waters,
Nice.
Up in Minnesota there in Canada and canoeing and having that background, it was a great fit, of technical and recreational. And, I got to participate both on the mixed design team and the construction team, and then even compete in competition and race. And that was one of the most exhilarating and wonderful experiences of my college career.
You got to be in the team to help actually paddle and do the races.
Yeah. I was. I think it was the regional competition in 2000, and now I'm dating myself.
It's okay. It's a safe space.
2012, 2012 probably 2012, and it was I think it was held. The Midwest region was held at Bradley University. I don't know if you were on the team at that point, but I know Marquette was in our region, and
Yep.
I got to paddle, and I was happy to get second place in the endurance race with my fellow colleague who got me into Concrete Canoe originally. So it was a really exhilarating experience, and I remember it to this day. And like I said, it opened all these doors and really let me see what else was out there besides structural engineering. Because originally I get into structural engineering, I want to design skyscrapers, I want to do this, I want to do that, right? But that's not what I do, and that's okay. I got into materials like you. I got into a laboratory course that I really enjoyed in undergrad, and interfaced with a professor at the University of Illinois in the materials department, and really got my foot in the door, right? And I love the class so much, I ended up teaching it in graduate school as I stayed at the University of Illinois to get my graduate degree, and I enjoyed that so much, and I think teaching students something that you're very passionate about is also a very rewarding experience. I know we're in the industry, but we see that in terms of our mentorship and other things like that.
And that's what I was going to say. I feel like with our roles now, we still have opportunities to teach. I mean, whether that be a younger engineer, whether that be a new process to a coworker, there's still those teaching moments, which are very rewarding.
Right. Yeah. So,
well, I had a question actually. Whenever you were as an undergrad, you got involved in canoe as well too. Were you aware of ACI student chapters, or did you do ACI stuff as well?
So I didn't get involved in the student chapter, but I knew people who were involved.
Okay.
With Concrete Canoe, there was a Concrete Connection. A lot of the graduate student advisors were involved in ACI,
Sure.
like that. So I knew of it, but I didn't
Yeah.
really get involved until industry. And when I went into the industry, I went into structural engineering, and I ended up being a structural consultant in the repair, restoration, forensics industry, and doing a lot of consulting. And my niche is concrete repair. And so a lot of that has to do with understanding concrete as a material and how it degrades and things like that. And so I reached out to my professor, first or second year in the industry, and said, "Hey, I really enjoy, concrete repair, and I want to learn more about the mechanisms that concrete degrades. Sulfate attack, freeze thaw, corrosion, alkali silica reaction. All those degradation mechanisms that we run into on a day-to-day basis with our existing structures, and certainly I was running into in my industry. Because, well, the best thing you can do is take my class. And so I'm like, well, yeah, why not? Let's do it. So I actually went back to school just as an online student to take a class in degradation of materials, corrosion, and things like that, and really, buffed up my knowledge of all that information and all those mechanisms, so that I could apply that to my day-to-day job and really build upon, or build a foundation for really advancing in the industry. So I tell people, I recruit a lot these days, and I tell young kids and students, take as many classes as you can. If you have extra time, you're never going to get this chance again to learn all these things that 10 years down the road, you'll wish you took that wood class, or you wish you took that masonry class, or that concrete degradation class. Those unique classes that are offered, that are there, and that information is there, that once you get in the industry, as you know, like, time becomes non-existent.
Precious. Yeah.
Very precious.
Yeah.
Yes. So why don't we switch gears and talk a little bit about the industry now, and go into kind of our advancement in the industry. I know that you're a licensed engineer, professional engineer in a couple of different states, right? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, that process for me, it obviously took a few years once I graduated. My first licensure was in the state of Minnesota, where I live. And in the state of Minnesota, since I had a master's degree, I was required to have 1 year less of work experience under.
Right. Yeah, I think it's similar for Illinois.
Yeah. And so that was nice to go, and I already have a leg up there. And then it was just a matter of gaining a variety of experiences as well too, in those 3 or 4 years that it was leading up to being eligible to sit for the PE exam. And one of the things that I also found interesting for myself while taking the PE exam was just how, as someone who had a passion for materials and had a lot of materials experience, that there wasn't really like a materials PE exam to take. It was, I could either look back at geotechnical, or I could look at structural, or there was transportation option. And so my graduate work was actually in structural engineering. And so I opted to go back for, I took the structural emphasis for the program. And that was, as I'm sure I would be preaching to the choir, talking to you just about the amount of studying and the practice exams. And I can look over at my bookshelf and see the bookshelf full of all the reference materials
Right.
and the tabbed books and all the notes that it took to be able to take the exam. And then I took the exam in, it was October of 18 then. And thankfully I was able to pass on my first attempt of taking the exam, and was able to start using that for my day-to-day job at AET. And then the nature of my work being laboratory based, we deal with projects from across the country regularly. And so then there became a need to start having coverage with licensure from various states, not just the state of Minnesota.
Sure.
And so it was last year, actually, I got my second state, I'll say, and that was North Dakota. So it was an adjacent one right next to us, but that worked out well because we have other engineers in the group who have other states. And so then depending on what the project is, kind of helps dictate like who's going to be the project manager and oversee and perform that work.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's other avenues within the company as well too. That I know of a couple of people who their skills are very much in demand, and they have licensure in almost like half of the states just because of all the work that they go to. It's like
Right.
it becomes a lot to keep track of as well too.
Yeah.
But
I can only imagine that. Yeah.
yeah, well, and it's like I found the PE to be a challenge, but I know the one thing I've always admired about you is the fact that you not only did the PE, but you also took and passed the SE as well too.
That's
which
right.
I always tip my hat to you for that, because that is super impressive to me. I mean, was your PE experience similar to mine? And then like what was it like to not just do the PE but also the SE?
Yeah. Well, I think it was similar, for sure. I mean, I obviously, having a structural degree, I was able to go and take the structural PE without having to, should I take the geotech or the transportation,
Yeah.
or like that.
Yeah.
So that was nice. And then in Illinois, we could take it at any time. So I didn't have to wait at all. I was able to take it, very, very soon after I started. And then once I passed it, I just had to wait until I had the 4 extra years of experience, to actually obtain the licensure, to get that license and be a licensed engineer in the state of Illinois.
Sure.
Engineering. But
yeah.
In the state of Illinois, as I'm sure you know, for the work that I do in structural engineering and not just repair, but design, any kind of structural engineering, a PE is insufficient, and you require an SE, which is a California-based exam. It's a 2-day exam. I think 2 8-hour days. 1 day focused on vertical gravity loads, things like that. The second day focused on lateral, which involves earthquakes and wind and things like that. So yeah, a much different experience. I remember studying quite a bit for the PE, but nothing compares to the amount of studying and preparation that was required for the SE. That's absolutely for sure. It's a task. It's a second job. Is what I describe it as, but it's worth it. It's a distinguishing characteristic that I'm very proud of, for sure, but very
as
humble.
You should be. Yeah.
And yeah, it was quite the experience for me. I know some people are lucky to take both exams and pass both of them on the first try, but the exam I feel has changed over the past several years. It's become more like 2 exams than 1 big exam, as your may have your older colleagues or whatever would describe it as. And in my opinion, the exam is best taken in two parts. You focus on the vertical exam first, and then you focus on the lateral exam. And I made the mistake of not doing that the first time because, well, everybody else is doing both. I might as well, and getting peer pressure from people at the company who, oh yeah, I just took both of them at the same time. And I just remember the second day just being absolutely exhausted. Like, why am I here? What am I doing? And obviously the second day didn't go well for me. I passed the first day on the first try, which was great. But the second day, I needed to work on. I needed to focus more on that. And I think some of it has to do with the education in the Midwest. As I'm sure you know, doesn't really focus too much on earthquake.
Right.
In your, especially specifically when you were looking at your geotech, I don't know if you did much in terms of earthquake and lateral loads in that respect, but I know we had a few earthquake theoretical courses at University of Illinois that gave us a good background, but it wasn't heavy design or anything like that. It's very, very little material specific information. So, how does concrete behave in an earthquake and that kind of thing, right? And it was a lot of learning on my own and reading codes and really just taking a whole new semester long course to really understand that. And I know I ran into a couple of issues that kind of, I guess, stretched out the time between me passing the first one and the second one. The first one, I had a family medical emergency and had to cancel the exam, and then and they only offered it every 6 months, so postponed it 6 months. And studying really hard, and March of 2020 hits, and everything.
Did something happen? Did something happen then?
Everything down, obviously, and that included the examinations. So all the examinations were canceled again. So I went a full year without taking the exam, and finally got to take it in October of 2020, mask and all. Best part about that is I got my own desk, didn't have to share any space with anyone, got to spread all my books and all my resources out.
So yeah, you had nice room to spread everything out then.
Yeah, that was what I needed. That was what I needed to pass. And now, I'm proud to have that licensure and be a practicing structural engineer. I know the first time, I don't know, I'm sure you've stamped some things, but that first time you take that stamp out and put your stamp on a repair drawing or a document.
Yeah.
It's a nerve-wracking experience.
Yes, it is. It's like it's really that sense of ownership I felt whenever I put the stamp on it. It's like I'm looking at this, I am reading it, I approve it, I think that this is good and acceptable and safe for the use and for the public, and it's a humbling experience.
Yeah, I know. I know the first time I stamped it, I did review every single word like 7 times before I was comfortable. But the biggest thing I take away from that is like some young engineers will talk to me about the idea of imposter syndrome. I don't know if you've experienced that, but you find yourself in such a high level technical position, and your billing rates are super high, and you're providing this professional opinion to your clients and things like that, and you just find yourself overwhelmed sometimes. And I think once I put that first stamp on the drawing, that pretty much eliminated the imposter syndrome. It was like, yes, I belong. I'm a structural engineer. This is my career. This is where I'm supposed to be.
That's really cool. I like that a lot. It's amazing how like that was able to do that for you.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, for sure.
I mean, so you got all of your technical chops, obviously, and well earned. And what have you been up to lately? What's been more of your day to day these days?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have transitioned a little bit here from more of a technical structural engineer doing, punching out calcs, doing a lot of site visits to more of a project manager, really juggling a lot of projects at a time and working with a lot of younger engineers and older engineers too, and delegating a lot of work and kind of just managing all the different projects that we have to work on at my company. Now, you know, in terms of my company and how it differs from like the traditional structural engineer design world. I know a lot of structural engineers that I know from school and colleagues and networking, and even at ACI. In the design world, you could work on one project for 3 years and nothing else. In my world, I think just yesterday I probably put in about 14 different entries to my timesheet.
Yeah.
So many different projects that I have to juggle all at once. They're all little projects, or you could have one big project that lasts a little bit longer, but a lot of these are just little investigations or critical examinations of facades, things like that, and so it takes a team to really accomplish that, and so my role has really gone from technically focused and making sure that all my calculations are perfect and doing things the way that I want them done, to really relying and mentoring younger staff and my team, my support, to then take over some of those responsibilities, so that we can accomplish that same goal. And I think maybe you probably can speak to a similar situation in your experience now as a manager of the concrete lab.
Right. And so when I started at AT, I was engineer one. After I got my PE, I was engineer two. And then my supervisor had retired, and then I was promoted to manager of the concrete materials laboratories, which is it was a career move that I had always kind of thought about as a possibility, but having it kind of dropped in my lap a couple years earlier than I had expected was exciting and daunting all at once. I think that I really resonate with a lot of what you had mentioned, Colin, about being able to step back from doing the work yourself to mentoring and developing those skills in now my employees.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a really high level of trust that you need to be able to exert with everybody, because I know I can be someone who's very much likes to be in control,
Right.
and I can be like I know if I do it, I can do it with my methods and take care of things, but I'm only one person, whereas the whole department is 16 people. And you said it takes a team, and being able to trust team members and develop team members, that's how we're able to do great things and to do more things and to do
Right.
things well.
Right.
But yeah, it's been really interesting. It's been exciting, and it's been challenging to find that balance between the uh, project management work and then the people management work, because there's always priorities and there's demands every day for both of those things. And so it's making sure that both sides of the coin are taken care of appropriately each day or each week as needed.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think it really reflects on the manager themselves if they're able to change in order to you know be that way. So I love what you said in that you always wanted it works your way. You're kind of set in stone. This is what we should do. But if you don't allow your mentees or your employees, in your case, to explore other options, you're never going to know what the benefits are there, and it may be more efficient and more beneficial for them to do a different way, right?
Right.
So it's not about micromanaging and things like that. It's about trusting your team, and yeah, I totally agree with everything you said there.
And it's letting people realize their potential as well too.
Yeah.
And trusting in their potential and recognizing that potential and believing in it. And it's just a cultivating of it all, which is a whole nother way of thinking than just project management.
I have one more question specifically for you. Some advice for me.
Okay. I'll brace myself.
Yes. In terms of your work-life balance, tell me how that changes when you start a family. Because I'll be starting a family here pretty soon, and
yes,
I'm really interested in what that all entails.
Yeah, well, first, a massive congratulations to you, Colin. I know that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's very exciting for you and for your family. Yeah, whenever you enter in small children to the picture, I think flexibility becomes the name of the game. That's what I've been, again, very blessed to be able to have that in my early career with my previous supervisor, is being able to have the flexibility. And it's like sometimes you've got to drop kids off at daycare, or sometimes you got to pick them up early, and then it ends up being a little bit of a later night balance. But I think it's always been just been a communication and a setting of expectations, not just with clients, but with colleagues as well too. And just to be able to work and to get the work done, but to recognize that you're also a person as well too, and a person who's taking care of little persons.
Yes.
As well, which is rewarding and tiring and exciting. So
yes, very exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be.
I appreciate that advice.
Yeah, flexibility is the name of the game, and I know that you're gonna do great. It's gonna be.
Thanks.
Yeah, and we'll have to come back again and talk about being, engineers and parents or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
yeah, no, that would be exciting too. But yeah, well, thank you for that question, Colin. And I just wanted to. Oh yeah, well, of course, it's been great getting to spend some time together and chatting and
for sure learning a little outside of convention, right?
Yeah, exactly, and learning a little bit more about you, and hopefully you getting to learn a little bit more about me. And I just want to thank everybody listening in and watching for joining us today. And on behalf of myself and my co-host Colin Rube, I hope you have a great rest of your day. And be sure to join us next time on Engineering Greatness, an original podcast from the American Concrete Institute.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Patrick.